It's painful. I forgot. It's so painful. Today we are experiencing the facilities of Lost and Float. Lost and Float is a therapeutic center that specializes in hot and cold treatment. Let's go. So what is this facility?
So this is Lost and Float. So this is kind of like our personal playground. These are all the things that we like to incorporate in our life, turn into a business model. But we provide flotation therapy, sensory deprivation tanks, cryotherapy, cold plunge, sauna, fire and ice, red light therapy, and we currently have yoga. Soon to have our own private workout pods. That's going to be the next iteration. Yeah. So this is just kind of what we like to do to stay young and healthy.
Amazing.
This is a dry cold therapy. So what this is going to do is it uses liquid nitrogen. There's some newer iterations of this that use just cold air. So they condense the air and they push into a chamber. This is nitrogen. Nitrogen's going to come in through this door. It's going to turn into a gas. It's going to pump it into this treatment chamber right here. And basically it's going to cool the ambient air around your body down to about -220 to -240 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh.
It's a 3-minute treatment. The difference between like a cold shower and this though is water is going to subcutaneously pierce the skin, right? So it's going to hit little nerve endings that are going to signal a little bit more discomfort. Yeah. This is completely dry. So it's going to be super cold, way colder than a cold shower, but it's not going to pierce the skin.
So it doesn't feel as cold?
It's not just discomforting. It's going to feel cold but not discomforting. So it's kind of a bit of a distinguishing characteristic there. So a lot of people will start with cryotherapy and kind of graduate to the cold plunge, the cold showers, things like that. But this one, you're going to you got to cover your feet, you got to cover your hands, because basically the way your body responds to cold temperatures, once it understands it's this differential between your core body temperature, what's happening, is it kind of goes into protection mode. So all the blood in your body, it kind of just sits in your core. So it's less surface area for body to lose heat. So the way we transfer heat is through our blood. The way it does that is you release a catecholamine called norepinephrine or noradrenaline. Once that's released in your body, it vasoconstricts your blood vessels, and that's what holds up that blood there. So it's a protection mechanism, but that norepinephrine, it's a neurotransmitter and a body hormone, and it's fantastic for so many things. So anti-inflammatory responses, just as a body hormone, it's going to shut down like signaling to pro-inflammatory molecules. As a neurotransmitter, it's literally responsible for your mood, attention, focus, and vigilance. I'm sure you noticed that with the cold showers, right? You just feel more vibrant, you feel better. Right. That's why. It's that norepinephrine that's being released in your bloodstream. So this is just a dry version of kind of cold plunging, I guess. It's called cryotherapy. You stay in there for 3 minutes, you pop out. The difference between the two, I would say I prefer like the cold plunge over this, due to the fact that I can put my hands and I can put my feet in the water. So we got certain receptors, cells on the palms of our hands, the bottom of our feet, and kind of like the bottom half of our face that transfer heat faster. So if I can get those underwater, I'm going to cool my core body temperature faster, right? Where in here, you have to cover those up to remain protected, otherwise you're going to deal with frostbite, which kind of ruins the whole experience. So you get a lot of the same benefits, but I do enjoy being able to get more surface area in the water.
I see.
Yeah, so this is cryotherapy.
So what's really the difference between a cold shower and an ice plunge?
The difference between like cold showers and cold plunging or ice baths or things like that is going to be obviously temperature. So in Nebraska, I'd say you're probably pulling out maybe 55 degrees temperature at the coldest setting, right? And it's going to be colder in the very beginning, but that's about as cold as you're going to get. It's also really hard to control the environment, how much is covered, how much isn't. So the big difference is going to be temperature and just surface area coverage. So it's going to be really hard to run studies on like a shower. It's very hard to control that environment, right? Like, are they fully covered? Are they not? What's the temperature, etc. Where with like ice baths, cold plunges, a lot of the studies are predicated off that because it's a very controlled environment. You know exactly the temperature, you know exactly where the water is coming up to. So that's the main difference, probably.
So what are the advantages of taking an ice plunge?
I would say the advantages are going to be releasing like catecholamines. So I'll show you an ice bath over here. We got a couple over here. We've got our standalone cold plunge and then our fire and ice room. I'll show you this one. It's going to be a little louder. Right. But basically the main advantages are you're going to release those catecholamines I was talking about. Norepinephrine being the one we're talking about with the cryotherapy, but you're also going to release adrenaline and dopamine. So obviously you're familiar with adrenaline, and before most people even get in there, they're releasing adrenaline just because of the anticipation towards what they're going to endure. But dopamine is literally where all your drive and ambition comes from. So without dopamine, you're not going to do anything. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they did some rat studies or mice studies where they would use like some dopaminergic, reaction on these mice, and they would have food set out. And so they would still go eat, but if they put any obstacle in front of that food with no dopamine in the system, nothing. So they would starve, right? So you gotta have dopamine, and I think it was like a mischaracteristic, like dopamine was always the happy hormone, but really it's not the happy hormone, it's where all your drive and ambition are gonna come from. The other cool thing about like utilizing cold exposure or things like that to kind of elevate your dopamine outside of like illicit drugs or nicotine and things like that is you don't just get this massive spike. So maybe a terrible example, if somebody does like an amphetamine or something like that, they're going to get this spike of dopamine, but it's got to get paid back. So they're going to go above into the pleasure zone, and then they got to go into the pain zone, basically. And it's always got to balance out. So no matter what, you have to pay it back. With cold exposure, things like that, it's like a slow release, right? So it's over hours of time. So you don't have this big high and this big crash. You kind of build up over time, so it kind of carries you throughout your day. Obviously, later in the day, go to bed, etc. The other nice thing is like if you can kind of manage your dopamine, so you're not just like doing a bunch of amphetamines, whatever it is that you're spiking it all the time, but you start to manage your dopamine over time. You can take your baseline dopamine and elevate it over time, so you can have a higher baseline of dopamine. So cold exposure, cold showers, things like that can help. Then
you have more drive.
Yeah, you're gonna have more drive. Exactly. I mean, who doesn't want that?
Yeah.
So the other thing is just the fact that it's really hard, right? So you're doing this difficult thing, and it's gonna make things that are equally as difficult or more difficult a little easier for you in the future. Anywhere to public speaking or sports or whatever, things that you might feel that avoidance to, you're gonna build that mental ability to go and do harder things.
So I've been feeling it with the cold showers.
Yeah, same concept, right? Because you know it, and I don't know what the part of the brain's called, I forgot, but there's actually a physical part of the brain that grows in response to doing these difficult things. I think Andrew Huberman talks about that, so I have to look up what that's called. But apparently it can grow and it can shrink, so you can actually create growth in this part of the brain by doing things like cold plunge. Another thing we do that goes like synergistically really with cold plunge is red light. And the reason I say that is red light by itself is fantastic, but when you incorporate it with cold plunge first and then go into red light, when you're in cold plunge, another thing I didn't talk about is the metabolic response to cold. So your body needs to heat itself back up. So the more you induce this this aggravator to your body, right? This hard thing, cold being what we're talking about, your body has to adapt to it. So your body has to become thermally, more adaptive, where you're familiar with shivering, right? So shivering is going to heat you up to like muscle contractions and everything like that, but it's not super efficient. So your brain's like, hey, you're going to keep doing this difficult thing, we need to be better at it. So your body will shift from like shivering thermogenesis to what's called non-shivering thermogenesis. And what you start to do is you start to produce more mitochondria inside like your adipose tissue and things like that. The more mitochondria you have, the more metabolically robust you become. That's where the term like brown fat comes from. Yeah. So under a microscope, if you have an adipose cell, it looks white. More mitochondria build starts to look beige. More mitochondria starts to build, and that's where the term brown fat comes from. So they found that you can actually produce more brown fat up until like a certain age. I think it's like high 60s or something like that. The more brown fat you have, you're kind of using like fat for fuel, if that makes sense. Once you have that mitochondria kind of activated, you're producing that more mitochondria the more often you do cold. You come into red light, and you're going to optimize that mitochondria. So you're going to hit that mitochondria at certain wavelengths of light, different near infrared light, far infrared light, depending on what your red light machine is capable of. It's going to penetrate that, it's going to flush out nitric oxide, and it's going to allow more oxygen to then dock. So now during the Krebs cycle, where you produce like ATP, your energy molecule, you're going to be able to produce more because you have more oxygen. So this is our red light over here. So basically this is super simple, man. It's basically like taking portions of the sun and sticking it in a bed through LED innovation. So different beds do different wavelengths for different things. Our bed does 10 different wavelengths of light, anywhere from blue to green, all the way up to like, I think our highest is 980. So you're going to get all the way to, basically you're going to go into the near infrared long wave form. Those shorter wavelengths, the blue, the green, they're going to be a little bit more superficial. They're not going to penetrate as deep, but they're going to help with collagen production, elasticities, things they're starting to see with that. Blue light for acne, and then more of that red light for like inflammation, healing, like I talked about, optimizing that ATP production, things like that. So you can use this as a fantastic tool for just, you know, getting back to functional, or like I was saying with the cold plunge, really taking it and using it for optimization. And it's going to get really bright, but I'll show you what this thing looks like, so just prepare yourself.
Okay.
So,
wow.
Yeah, so this is the red light. So they're short sessions, anywhere from like 10 to 15 minutes. You lay in there, it's really comfortable, it's kind of like a warm breeze, and that's it, man. Another great modality to kind of incorporate into your life, so you've talked about the cold side of things, right, is the heat. So like hyperthermic conditioning, heating your body is, I would say, cold and heat are two of the most underutilized, like basically performance enhancing things that you can do naturally. So obviously you got the cold covered, but heat is a good one to include in that as well. And since today you're going to be doing the fire and ice room, yes, you're going to be going between both these worlds. So I'll take you back there, show you, and I'll kind of explain some of the benefits of sauna. So this world right here is where we're going to take cold plunge over on this side, right, that we had discussed earlier.
Yes. And
now we're going to incorporate it with heat. So the heat we use here, a lot of people do fire and ice a little bit different. They might have hot water, cold water, so they do water contrasting therapy. We just use a traditional Finnish sauna, and we're just going for that heat acclimation. So sauna, it would take me an hour to list all the benefits of sauna, but some of the main ones that people are going to be familiar with is the cardiovascular benefits, stroke volume, vascular demand. So even for the brain, like starving off dementia, even all the way to Alzheimer's, all-cause mortality, it's all going to be lowered the more sauna you do, period. You're just pumping, it's like exercise, right? Same kind of concept. This is a mild form of exercise, basically. You're just getting that stroke volume, you're pushing that blood through. And then if you get to a point with sauna where you start getting discomforted and you start to produce like what are called heat shock proteins in your body, and those are going to go through and they're going to go help with protein synthesis over degradation. So that's always a good thing. You don't want to have more protein degradation than synthesization. It's going to go help and misfold or help refold and misfold the proteins throughout your body. This is just insane. I mean, literally all the way to the point of like EPO production. So like people like Lance Armstrong cheating and, you know, stuff like that. You can actually increase growth hormone, EPO. It's great for your brain. It's going to be amazing for cardiovascular benefits. And it's just great for recovery too. But today you're going to put the two together, right? So we talked about the cold plunge over here and the benefits of that. So you're going to put these two benefits together, but you're going to do them like synergistically a little bit, where you're going to do what's called contrast therapy. You're going to go back and forth between the two. Everybody has their own protocol for doing this, but I would say my personal favorite protocol is I'll usually start, I'll go cold, and then I'll follow it up with hot, cold, hot, and then I always end on cold because I'm looking for that metabolic response we talked about. Forcing myself to naturally heat back up, right, is going to push me to like produce that mitochondria and everything else. Yes. Or if I get out of the cold and I just get in a hot shower or back in the sauna, I kind of shut that off. But when you're forcing your body to do it, you know, on its own, then you're going to adapt to that a little bit better. But yeah, so this is, you're going to do this for an hour. Back and forth and
back and forth for an hour.
Yes, yeah. Good personal enjoyment, man. Yes. What you're going to do is the shower's right above you, so just do a good shower before you get rocking and rolling. Anytime you exit the sauna to get in the cold plunge, like I said, you don't have to do a full shower, but do a rinse off. Yes. You are getting the sweat off your body, but you are giving yourself a minute to bring your heart rate down. Cold plunging. My biggest piece of advice is cover as much surface area as fast as you can. If you just like tiptoe in and go slow, you're making it more miserable than it needs to be. Like I said, I plug my nose, go under, and I come up, and then I'm fully covered. So that no-go response is kind of mitigated to an extent. When you're first getting familiarized with this, the two most discomforting things are going to be your hands and your feet. So maybe pop those out in the beginning, and then over time you're going to want to work them in, and then over time with this practice you're just going to want to keep them in the water. And then most importantly is your breath work. So you're going to feel yourself kind of hyperventilate a little bit. It's kind of a panic response, very normal. My favorite breathing technique is doing like the physiological sigh. So I'll take the deepest inhalation through my nose as I can. I'll feel my whole diaphragm, my ribs, my back, everything. And then I'll let it out my mouth, kind of like I have a straw in my mouth. So just a slow exhale, just a slow controlled exhale. And I'll just repeat that. That's going to kind of shift you from that fight or flight state into that more parasympathetic rest and digestive state inside of a flight, inducing environment. Breath work is key. So those are my biggest tips on that. Also, if you get in and in 10 seconds you get out, don't worry, it's totally normal. Each one's going to get a little bit easier, but your brain is just, it's going to immediately tell you, hey, this isn't possible, what are you doing? It doesn't know you're in a controlled environment.
Yeah.
So it's supposed to be a controlled environment, but it's supposed to be uncomfortable, and you're going to get both of those. Man.
Amazing.
So that's how I would suggest doing that. And then, like I said, by your final plunge, you're going to realize, by damn, this isn't so bad.
It's bad.
And then if you want to make it worse, yes, you can remove that thermal layer, things like that. You can kind of do whatever you want. When you're sitting inside the sauna, there's a ladle in there. You can pour as much water over the rocks as you like. It creates a little steam tunnel in there. There's a little bottle of eucalyptus in there if you want to kind of spray it over the rocks, create a little ambiance. But that's basically it, man. And this will just count down from an hour, so it'll have 60 minutes on here. And just be out of here before it hits 0. That's
sure.
it. Yeah. And then when you're in the sauna, just sit on a towel, and then use the other towel, obviously, for a shower.
Yes.
But outside of that, any questions for me?
No, sounds amazing.
Nah, it's going to be great, dude.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a workout. When you're done, you're like, whew. Yeah, you feel it for sure.
So for the past year and a half, I've been taking cold showers every single day. But I've never tried the ice plunge. It's not going to be fun. And we haven't even started the ice bath and it's already cold. Now what you're seeing now is me struggling to go in because rinsing off the water was pretty cold. Temperature here isn't very warm. And the ice plunge is around 39 degrees, which is freezing. Almost freezing. And I'm shivering and we haven't yet started. It's so cold. It is way colder than I anticipated. Whoa! Are you ready to see me suffering for 3 minutes straight? Let's do it. It's cold. It's cold. Am I going to react? Yes, I am. Oh, it's cold. It's painful. I forgot. It's so painful. Okay. We're gonna do 3 minutes. Yeah. Now it's me fighting for my life because every part of me wants to leave the bath and go back to being warm. Oh, that's painful. But we're not going to do it. We're doing it for 3 minutes straight. And while doing it, we'll talk about my journey with laziness. So why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this immense amount of suffering? Well, I was lazy my whole life. Like 22 years, just a lazy guy, not doing much. And after living my life as a lazy person for most of my life, I read a book, 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson, and in the book he talks about suffering, and he talks about the fact that suffering is an inevitable part of life, and the longer you accept it, the better you will be able to endure suffering. And this book just really changed my life, because I was a slave of my emotions completely. I wasn't aware of it, but I sure was. And by emotions, I'm not only talking about anger, or happiness, or sadness, or all of the above. I'm talking about motivation, being unmotivated, being lazy, being hungry, thirsty. All of our cravings, I would say they are emotions. And the moment I understood that, I managed to start this battle with my laziness. And I started this war that I'm waging war for about 2 years now, of me trying the best to become the best version of myself, but really trying to become the best version of myself, and not just saying I want to become the best version of myself, like I used to say some years ago. And it requires doing hard things and suffering on a daily basis. If you want to really improve, if you want to really be able to endure suffering and get to where you want to be, you need to be able to endure suffering for a long period of time, because you need to work hard, and you need to really be able to just put yourself out there, and you can't do it when you're in bed. You can't be successful when you're in bed. The path to success it goes through all those hardships, and it goes through the hills and the valleys, and just being able to endure all of it when you really don't want to do it. And well, I said I'd be in the bath, in this cold shower for cold plunge, for 3 minutes. I've been doing it for 4 minutes now. We're gonna push to 5. My body is freezing. And why am I even doing this? So I think I really want to become something great. I really want to make a change in the world. And I need to be able to endure the pain that I am suffering from right now, in order for me to eventually be able to suffer other things. And I've been doing cold showers for the past 1.5 years on a daily basis, almost 2 years. And it really did change my life. So my suggestion for you is take a cold shower. Finish every shower with just a cold plunge, and you'll see how your life changes. We have only 15 seconds left for these 5 minutes of me blabbering. I hope I was succinct enough. Maybe the cold is affecting my ability to talk. We just finished the 5-minute mark. I'm gonna dump my head in, and we're done. We're done. Yeah. We're done. Oh, it's so cold. Oh, it is so cold. So to summarize the experience, I would truly recommend this place. Amazing if you're in Nebraska, Lincoln. It is a one-of-a-kind thing. So yeah, and I feel refreshed, I feel better, and I'm off to start my day.